Hi everybody, JJ here with ASUS. I'm back with our PC DIY X570 live stream. We're going to be talking about the latest generation of our passively cooled X570 series motherboards. In total, we're going to be talking about 5 different boards. Excited for you that have gone ahead and joined us here on Facebook and YouTube. So we're going to be kicking things off here in a moment. We've gone ahead and re-kicked off the stream, and we're just going to be double checking a couple of things, making sure that audio is coming through across all the channels. So let's go ahead and confirm that everything's going along with that side, and we'll be jumping into the stream here in a moment. Hey, Fernando. Thanks for joining us here on the stream. Fantastic. Thank you for joining us. There's not going to be actually any brand new MATX-based motherboards that we're going to be talking about for this stream. But as always, make sure to go ahead and join us in our PC DIY Facebook group or watch our social media channels because you never know what we might be working on. All right, guys, everything looks to be coming through okay in terms of audio, so let's go ahead and get things kicked off. So in this stream, we're going to be talking about the latest generation of our X570 series motherboards, specifically passively cooled motherboards. We've got a total of 4 motherboards that we're going to be diving into, but there's actually a 5th motherboard that is part of this passive kind of refresh lineup, and that's going to be the CROSSHAIR VIII Dark Hero. And we'll be weaving this board into kind of the overall lineup to give you guys some insight in terms of how there's some respective upgrades and similarities between, let's say, the newer CROSSHAIR VIII Extreme that we're going to be talking about, as well as that Dark Hero, and how that also stacks up against the ProART Creator, the Tough Gaming board, as well as the ROG STRIX refresh with the X570-E Gaming 2. So let's go ahead and first just talk a little bit about the core chipset and kind of give a little bit of clarification regarding something that there has been some confusion regarding. And that's going to be when we're talking about kind of X570, there has been some discussion. Is this a new chipset? I've heard about kind of X570S, X570, is this the same thing, or what might be going on there? So let's go ahead and just quickly touch on what we're specifically talking about when we are referring to these latest generation boards. They are all utilizing the same core X570 chipset, but there is going to be, of course, some updates in terms of just kind of feature set functionality that's occurred through firmware, as well as on the motherboard side specifically, there's going to be features and functions. But that being noted, let's go ahead and just quickly kind of take a look at things from a high level and kind of reaffirm what we know is going to be present within X570. So first and foremost, when we're talking about the core chipset here, we are going to be taking a look at, of course, a platform that fully has support for the latest generation Ryzen series CPUs. So that's going to be Ryzen 5000 series CPUs that also, of course, are based on the Zen 3 architecture. You're going to get PCI Gen 4 support for both the CPU lanes that are provided from the CPU as well as from the chipset. So you get PCI Gen 4 on the primary side as well as on the secondary side. That's going to be a key difference between, let's say, B550 and X570. You're going to have, of course, overclocking support. That's going to be overclocking for the DRAM as well as, of course, through the CPU with things like per CCX overclocking, manual tuning, and, of course, PBO2 now in its latest iteration. It's important to also kind of keep in mind that there is an improved memory controller in this generation, and we're also maximizing that when you talk about kind of the DRAM tuning options that you have available on this board, as well as the performance, especially in the ROG motherboards that feature OptiMEM III, and we'll definitely be talking a bit about that. On the core kind of chipset side, outside of that PCI Gen 4, you of course have support for super speed USB 3.2 connectivity, RAID support, and of course, as an update for this platform overall, there has been resizable bar and AMD's Smart Access memory with the latest generation AGESA. So overall, again, all of these boards are going to be the same X570 based chipset that we've known for some time. The main difference is that AMD released an AGESA a while back that actually aligned with the CROSSHAIR VIII Dark Hero that helped to enable passive chipset support. And that essentially just means that there was no fan that was present. Okay, so that is kind of the main item to kind of keep in mind there when we're talking about a difference fundamentally between those boards. Excuse me, between the chipset, between B550, X570, and kind of this rumored X570S, where all these boards are X570 based. So next up, let's go ahead and now dive a little bit just into kind of the CPU side, some of the similarities and consistencies that we're going to see across all the boards that we're going to be talking about, even though there is definitely going to be some respective features and functionality difference between these boards. You know, with ROG, we're definitely focusing on kind of the gaming, the overclocking, and the modding, and kind of the water cooling enthusiast community. With boards like our ProArt series, you're going to be looking a little bit more kind of that prosumer professional content creation user. And then, of course, with the Tough Gaming and the ROG STRIX lineup, we are again looking at the gamer, but gamers that maybe have a little bit more of a kind of entry budget or looking for a little bit of that kind of sweet spot when it comes to respective features and functions. But there are definitely going to be some similarities. So let's take a look here at some of the kind of consistent attributes that we're going to see across the boards. So what's new, kind of what's the same. We talked already a little bit about kind of what we can expect within an X570 series based motherboard, and what are the things that are you going to kind of see consistently across all these boards. Well, one is going to be the ASUS team to power stage approach. This is something that we've kind of already really validated with our current generation of both Intel and AMD based motherboards. On the AMD side, we've seen outstanding performance, really shown by the CROSSHAIR 8 Dark Hero when it launched with the X570 chipset, as well as other CROSSHAIR series boards like the Impact, where we've done over 6.4 gigahertz on actually the CROSSHAIR 8 Impact, which is a mini ITX DTX based motherboard, which actually has a lower overall quote unquote VRM array than you would have, let's say, like on the CROSSHAIR 8 Dark Hero or the Extreme board, or even kind of the Creator board. So it's important to kind of keep in mind that regardless of which board that we're talking about, you're going to get a stable and reliable experience, regardless that we will talk about kind of the improvements that we are seeing from a power delivery design perspective. PCIe Gen 4 support with, of course, the latest generation of M.2 based SSDs. All of these boards at a minimum have, of course, at least 2, with many of the boards actually supporting even more, with boards like the ProART Creator supporting 3 and the Extreme supporting actually up to 5. So that's going to, of course, be another distinguishing attribute. Next-gen connectivity in terms of networking, where at a minimum, at least 2.5 gigabits LAN is going to be present on these boards, and then Wi-Fi 6E, which is going to be the absolute fastest Wi-Fi 6 standard that is currently available. Now, for Wi-Fi 6E, it's important to keep in mind, of course, you have to pair that with a Wi-Fi 6E router like the AXE 11000 that I've got here next to me, and Windows 11 for when it eventually releases, but it is fully backwards compatible with all Wi-Fi 6 routers and, of course, Windows 10. We're also going to have a consistency in terms of all these boards having ASUS isolated audio design. There's going to be some difference between different models, and we'll definitely dive into that. But they all also do feature our ASUS AI noise canceling technology, the latest generation, which supports bidirectional operation, or what we call two-way AI noise canceling. And then lastly, super speed connectivity with USB 3.2 support, including an internal Type-C header. So that's going to kind of be consistent across all these boards, but as we move into each one of them, we'll definitely see that some of these boards really bring a lot more in terms of their respective features and functionality. Now, I think somebody from our team has gone ahead and already actually touched on that we already do have actually a pre-order listing available for the Extreme board. So I'm going to go ahead and drop that link in there for you guys. So if anybody is interested in checking that out, we do already have it listed right now for the CROSSHAIR 8 Extreme. And as we get through each one of the boards that we're going to be talking about, we will note a little bit in terms of kind of the timeline for release and availability. The Extreme board, along with the Creator board, will be the first 2 that will be initially available. Going to be looking towards the end of the month as we move into September for the Extreme and for the ProArt. And then as we move a little bit closer into kind of the Q4 timeframe, you're going to see the release and availability for the Tough Gaming board and the ROG STRIX board. Okay. And definitely, if you guys have any questions, comments, feedback, feel free to go ahead and drop them into the chat. I'll do my best to go ahead and kind of tackle any questions that I see there as we're going through. But hopefully, I think as we dive through each one of these boards and their respective features and designs, you're going to hopefully be able to get a really good understanding of what these boards are bringing to the table, and hopefully how they can really help to have you have a great experience when you go about building a system on an ASUS X570 series board. Now, before I get ready to jump into the Extreme, I do want to lastly kind of touch on just 2 quick things here. One is going to be AGESA updates. I talked a little bit about that already, and the reason why that is going to be important is that when you're talking about AGESA, this is essentially the firmware that AMD releases, and it helps to improve performance, interoperability, compatibility. It helped to bring things like resizable bar, smart access memory, and PBO2, and things along those lines. And ASUS has done a really kind of extensive job to be very diligent in terms of releasing the latest generation AGESA across all of our 400 and 500 series motherboards. We have already committed actually a full statement that all of those boards, hopefully by about the middle of September, we'll all have the latest patch available, which would be 1.2.0.3. And why this is important is just, one, all these latest boards, if you decide to pick any one of them up, are already going to come with newer AGESA, so that you get Ryzen 5000 series CPU support out of the box. Now, while all the boards support USB BIOS flashback technology, essentially what that just means is you can flash the motherboard, you can update its BIOS with no CPU, no memory, no graphics card. You literally just have to connect the power supply, and you do it through a flash drive. You don't need to do that. You can essentially get the board and the system up and running, and then flash through the integrated UEFI environment, and you will be good to go. But just because the AGESA can really help to provide you the best experience possible from performance, stability, and interoperability, we just want to help you to be aware that we have gone ahead and released the latest generation AGESA from AMD out for pretty much all of our boards right now, and these boards will also be included in that mix. And this also does tie a little bit into future Windows 11 readiness. We have also begun to roll out official Windows 11 UEFI releases, so that when Windows 11 does come out in Q4, you will have support for that. So that goes ahead and wraps up that note in terms of AGESAs. The last point that I do want to touch on is going to be a little bit in terms of kind of passive cooling and kind of active cooling, and kind of the difference in the experience of what you might want to kind of keep in mind when you're evaluating these. Now, these boards bring a lot to the table, but one of the key hallmarks is going to be the fact that in this chipset area right here, there is no active airflow design. Now, does this mean that you have to be concerned that if you were looking at another ASUS series motherboard that had an actual chipset fan, that there's something wrong or something you should be concerned with? Not at all. The actual vast majority of users right now are running an X570 series motherboard with an active chipset fan, and they actually don't even have any concerns when it comes to the actual noise or the overall kind of operation of it. But some users do prefer a fully passive solution. So I do want to just quickly touch on just a little bit of information to help to kind of reaffirm that if you are looking still at one of our boards like the CROSSHAIR 8 Hero, the Tough Gaming Plus, or the Pro, or any one of our boards that is out that does feature an active airflow design, you don't need to worry about kind of any concerns that there's going to be kind of reliability or performance or kind of any things along those. So I just want to touch on just some key elements right here. One, the design that we're utilizing is a very, very high performing design. It's actually the best of all X570 motherboards on the market, where we utilize a special custom Delta Superflow fan. This actual fan has a specialized a bearing and self-lubricating design that helps to really offer outstanding lifespan performance. 60,000 hours. This is greater than what you'll see on other motherboards that have active chipset-based fans. In addition to that, it has actually very good tonal characteristics. So it's low vibration, low noise. It's designed to actually run at lower RPMs. And we also did take care in terms of the design to provide active airflow to actually be shunted out and actually pass the internal fins to help to complement the adjacent M.2 drives. And there's also an inherent benefit that regardless of kind of your airflow configuration, you get that kind of consistent airflow that is going to be provided to the chipset along with that adjacent M.2 drive. Okay, so again, no concerns in that regard. If you're going to be looking at a motherboard that has a fan on there, we are still offering those motherboards within our lineup, but the focus here is going to be on these latest generation passively cooled boards. So let's get ready to start jumping into this, and we'll kind of go from there, guys. All right, guys. And again, if you guys have any questions, we'll be definitely going into that. I can definitely see that there's some questions already regarding kind of the VRM design that we've got here on the Extreme board and things along those lines. We're definitely going to be jumping into that. So first things first, let's actually go ahead and get ready to talk about this guy. So the CROSSHAIR 8 Extreme. So the Extreme is a really special board. It's kind of our benchmark in terms of the absolute flagship when we offer an ROG series motherboard. It's really designed for kind of enthusiasts that are looking for the absolute best. They want something that has a unique, distinctive, stylized aesthetic, has a high-end focus in terms of overclocking capability and premium and high-performing power componentry, robust storage flexibility in terms of the expansion support and connectivity, as well as sometimes really cool kind of innovations, which we are usually kind of first introducing on a board like the Extreme before we roll them out into other series. And definitely with a board like this, you're really kind of getting everything that we can do in terms of offering a best-in-class experience. That if you're looking to set kind of an absolute benchmark in terms of really wanting everything, this is the board you're going to want to take a look at. And it is going to even be higher end than our current CROSSHAIR 8 Dark Hero. So before I get into the specifics here from a high level, I want to give you guys a little bit of insight as kind of what are going to be some of the key differences that you're going to have on the CROSSHAIR 8 Extreme compared to, let's say, the CROSSHAIR 8 Dark Hero. Now, for reference, let's go ahead and actually bring up the CROSSHAIR 8 Dark Hero and just kind of give you a little bit of a side-by-side difference so that we can see comparatively kind of the two boards together. The CROSSHAIR Dark Hero was the first board that we did release that had the passive chipset design. It offered quite a number of improvements compared to our traditional CROSSHAIR 8 Hero, being that the VRM was upgraded. It had a more advanced VRM heatsink design. It had Dynanic OC Switcher, and it had also a revised design aesthetic. The Dynanic OC Switcher technology was really a big boon to kind of tweakers and tuners out there that really kind of wanted to have the best experience possible at pushing Ryzen from kind of a single thread increase in frequency, as well as an all-core a bump in frequency, but depending on your workload, and it would dynamically be able to switch based on some parameters that can be defined within the firmware environment, the UEFI firmware. So here we have the Crosshair E Dark Hero, and now just for kind of reference, we're going to put that side by side and compare that to the Extreme. And from there, I will also then go ahead and, show you guys just a quick kind of general slide before we kind of compare the two, dive deeper into the Extreme versus the Dark Hero. But you're going to be able to see that dimensionally, this is a bigger board. The Crosshair 8 Extreme is an EATX board as opposed to the traditional Dark Hero, which is going to be a traditionally sized ATX-based board. So dimensions are going to be pretty similar, but the Extreme is going to be a little bit larger, and we've definitely utilized that space to be able to give you more storage expansion because you can support up to 5 M.2 SSDs. We've changed some of the actual connectivity options in terms of right angle positioning, and we've also expanded on some of the additional connections that are available and use that also additionally for more coverage, and when it comes to the overall heatsink assembly that's on the board, which is really, really impressive, although it was already extremely good on the Dark Hero board. So let's go ahead and kind of talk a little bit about what do you get in terms of these upgrades first. So one moment, guys. Here we go. So first things first, when we kind of take a look here, is going to be the overall premium design aesthetic that you have on this board. It's got a really beautiful, clean, kind of monochromatic design. The vast majority of this board is really all kind of aluminum, where you have massive VRM heatsinks at the top, at the side, the extruded shroud. The entirety of this portion is also aluminum. Down here at the base of the board is also going to be aluminum. And then even the actual base at the bottom, which looks like this beautiful kind of chrome metal, is actually a brand new process that we have on this motherboard that's even more premium. It's an electroplating process that really gives it a premium kind of almost chrome-like accent to the really clean monochromatic color scheme. There's also going to be more RGB lighting zones. In total, there'll be 3 RGB lighting zones. One here in the ROG top corner in terms of the IO shroud. Then we have here the RGB eye, and then there's also going to be RGB lighting that's going to be on the side profile. And then you have 3 aRGB headers in addition to the actual fan controller hub, which comes included with this, which is a fan controller and aRGB hub, which will give you even more connections. The VRM, it has, of course, a higher performing VRM configuration. Now, both boards were already using super high performing power stages in a teamed power stage configuration, along with 10K rated capacitors, which also are higher performing in their performance metrics as compared to traditional capacitors, and microfine alloy inductors. Those are the inductors are what are referred to as the chokes. They actually have higher performance compared to a traditional molded inductor as well. So that is overall the VRM design is going to be higher. The heatsink assembly is going to be higher performing. M.2 expansion is going to be more robust. The Dark Hero supports 2 drives. This will have a total of 5 drives that you can run up to, including the DIMM.2. Networking, this will have dual LAN with 10 gigabit LAN along with Wi-Fi 6E, which is another improvement. The audio, this utilizes the latest generation Realtek ALC 4000 series audio codec and an ESS Saber DAC, which will even be a higher performing kind of audio configuration than you had on the Dark Hero, which still had a premium S1220 audio codec along with an ESS Saber DAC implementation, but this audio design is higher. The Extreme will also come in, we'll get a little bit of a closer shot, the ROG Clavis, which is a USB DAC that also comes included with the board. USB connectivity, it's got USB for days. This board has a total of 18 super speed USB ports that are on there, including Thunderbolt 4, along with 4 internal high speed USB 3 headers. So you have two Type-C and 2 traditional USB 3. So you're going to get covered there. And then fan connectivity and control. This board supports AiCooling, which is a first. This is actually technology that we first implemented on Intel. It requires a dedicated controller for more advanced hardware level monitoring and fan control adjustment, and we'll talk about how that works, along with Hydranode header, specialized fan headers, which have a higher amperage output, 3 amps versus 1 amp, which is going to be key if you're going to be running kind of like high groupings of fans in like a radiator configuration. And then extras, there's a ton of them. It's got a 2-inch OLED-based display. It also has AIDA64 license that's included, a 1-year BullGuard AV license, a graphics card holder, a different type of PCIe slot layout, and then the right angle connectors a specialized V-latch design implementation for overclockers, and then a true dual BIOS design. And dual BIOS, we'll talk a little bit about when we get into kind of the overclocking elements of this board. But with a dual BIOS implementation, essentially you can run 2 independent ROMs. This can be really advantageous, and maybe you're testing a different ROM for a different purpose. Maybe you have specific OC presets under this kind of scenario, and then you want to run a more kind of traditional configuration. Maybe you want to run one 100% stock and then the other one overclocked. You can do a lot of different things. Most of our motherboards pretty much only run a single essentially UEFI BIOS ROM, but this board has 2 of them. So in total, that's quite a bit that you actually get upgraded on the Extreme, but we're going to be diving into kind of these elements on this board. So, hey, Trek, that's definitely something that we're talking about here on the stream. So when we're talking about a release and availability, right now we are ready to have the Extreme board in terms of a pre-order listing available on Newegg. I'm going to go ahead and throw up that link for you right now so you can go ahead and see that. Keep in mind that the ProART board will be coming a little bit closer towards the end of the month as we move into September. And then for the Tough Gaming board, as well as for the ROG STRIX boards, those will be coming a little bit later in Q4, and we'll definitely be coming out with information on our social media channels, the PC DIY weekly live stream and our PC DIY group, for you to be kept in the loop if you're looking for availability on those 2 boards. But the first 2 boards that we're going to be talking about will be the Extreme board and this guy right here, which we'll get into in a little while, the ProART board. These will be the first 2 boards that we're going to have in terms of the overall launch lineup in terms of their availability. So look towards the end of the month. The listing is already gone ahead and live right now for the Extreme board. And of course, if you are looking for a board right now, we do also have the CROSSHAIR VIII Dark Hero right now available. That board is part of kind of the 5 boards that we are offering in a fully passive chipset configuration, and it's an outstanding board. And I think that for probably many is probably the best option that we're going to have if you're looking for a high performance passively cooled base motherboard, because it's got an outstanding VRM design. It's got so many of the kind of key features and functions that ROG motherboards are known for, and it also introduces that really kind of specialized feature that a lot of overclockers have really appreciated, and that's going to be the Dynanic OC Switcher technology. So again, that board is already available with the CROSSHAIR VIII Dark Hero, but we are talking about, of course, the CROSSHAIR VIII Extreme. So let's go ahead and jump into it and definitely go there. All right, guys. So let me go ahead and throw this board down here, and we're going to go ahead and get a little bit of a closer look at it, because it's an absolute stunning board here. And let me just get this lined up for you guys, and we'll go from there. All right, guys. So here you can see we've got the CROSSHAIR VIII Extreme. And you will see that it's got a really just beautiful kind of clean monochrome design aesthetic. And, you know, if we kind of go from a little bit of a tour here at the top, you're going to see this right here. The I/O shroud has, of course, an integrated I/O shield. You have, this is all aluminum right here. So massive kind of just high-end I/O shroud. This portion lights up in RGB lighting. I'll connect a power supply there in a moment so you can go ahead and check that out. But this area lights up right here. If we move down right here, you'll see the 2-inch OLED display, and I'll show what that looks like when it's connected. We then have the ROG Eye right here. This also lights up. And then the perimeter right here across the entirety, there's an RGB light bar that's on the side of the board. Now, when we take a look here, kind of from the top level side, this is a massive VRM assembly, right, that you have on this board. It's truly just an impressive VRM design that we have on this. And again, I do want to kind of reinforce the fact that it's not super critical that you have to be kind of super concerned that the previous boards didn't have a sufficiently kind of high-end VRM design. It really just comes down to that with an Extreme board, we kind of want to set really kind of a high-end foundation to really be able to kind of say this is really kind of a best-in-class experience. So these are 90 amp power stages, which are underneath in terms of the overall power delivery design. They are teamed together to work in unison, and we'll talk a little bit about that. We've got the microfine alloy chokes, which are here, and then these are 10K rated capacitors. If we also take a little bit of a closer look here, these are the ProCool power connectors. So you can actually see those pins. Those are thicker pins because they can actually carry a higher amperage. That is going to be important because they essentially can provide better efficiency and lower actually temperature performance, especially as you're driving high sustained current through your power connections that are on there. So this along with the massive VRM heatsink assembly, which you can see is a two-stage heatsink. You'll see right there a little bit, that's the heat pipe. So there's a heat pipe that connects these two massive large heat sinks, and they are very, very large. If I kind of angle this, you can see just kind of how tall they are, the massive kind of fins that are present in there. And they are also what is called dual contact in nature. And so what that essentially means is that the base of this heatsink is making contact with the inductors and also making contact with the power stages. So they do a really, really great job of really keeping this VRM extremely cool under load. Now, when you kind of put that all together along with the trace layout is the PCB design and how we actually have the traces for the CPU in relation to the power delivery, in relation to the DRAM, along with all the tuning that we put in the UEFI BIOS. This is really what is going to allow this board to be able to have a high level of performance when it comes to its overall overclocking capability. Somebody's asking a question about the water cooling compatibility. So you have no issues in terms of water cooling compatibility to be able to use a CPU block here, but something like a mono block is purpose designed to not only cover the CPU, but the VRM assembly. In that regard, you would want to, right now, we don't have currently any partners that have produced a mono block. That may come at a later stage, but as of right now, if you want a mono block coverage, then you would want to go with the CROSSHAIR 8 Hero, or you would also want to go with, I think, the ROG STRIX -E board, or of course the CROSSHAIR 8 Dark Hero. All of those boards can support a mono block if you want to cover that. But keep in mind, this is extremely high performing already. It does not require in the slightest any type of water cooling. Just like actually any one of the X570 boards that we require, none of them require water cooling. It's generally going to just be an enthusiast pursuit or an aesthetic consideration if you want to kind of water cool that. Okay. Here we of course got the 4 DIMM slots with our OptiMEM III, and we'll talk a little bit in a moment about how OptiMEM III works. Here you will see the M.2 add-in card, and so I will kind of jump into that in a little bit of a moment here, but we'll see this is actually what installs right there. So let me just go ahead and actually get that installed for you guys, and you can see kind of how it sits in there. Okay, so that would be where you install 2 of the M.2 SSDs. As we kind of go here on the side, you have all your actual connections that are right angle. So this is going to be like your CPU power, your radiator fans. You have your buttons here to be able to go ahead and kind of like start the board. If we take a look right here, you've got 1 Type-C header and a second Type-C header, and then 2 USB 3 traditional headers. So that's right there alone is 8 super speed USB ports. And the Extreme also kind of ups the ante in that the Type-C is a USB 3.Gen 2x2 interconnect, so 20 gigabits. We also are supporting a high-speed USB PD protocol for 60 watts. You can see right here your SATA 6G ports. And then lastly right here, if we go down to the bottom and we kind of just rotate this, you'll see that really beautiful kind of electroplated base. And if I go ahead and, I think I got 1 screw that I need to remove, so give me 1 second. And I will remove that, but we'll see the additional areas of expansion on this board, okay? So we can see right there that we have the actual M.2 thermal pads right there. And then you can see right here, you've got your M.2 SSDs. So that's 2. And remember over here at the top, the M.2 card, we can support 2, 1 on this side and 1 on the other side once we remove that. And then right here for the OLED screen, if I go ahead and remove that, give me 1 second to remove this. This is where your 5th M.2 SSD would be. Okay, so you can see right there, you've got 3 M.2 zones, and then along here with the M.2 card is going to give you a total of 5. Now, one of the cool things that we've done for this generation specifically is going to be that this also features a new update to our actual M.2 installation. So I'm going to go ahead and use this one right here, but you can see all 3 of these M.2 slots. This is something you'll actually find on all of the X570 boards that we'll be talking about, but they are featuring our new Q.Latch design implementation. So as an example right here, I've got an M.2 SSD. Traditionally, you would need to have some screws, and this can be a little bit more fidgeting because you'd have to have this very small thumb screw. You might have to put in the thumb screw, then you'd have to have that small screw. You need a correct precision tip screwdriver, ideally a magnetic screwdriver. But now, I just angle in my M.2 SSD. And from there, once it's angled in there, you'll see that there's this small little latch, and all I need to do is kind of lock that latch in place. So you see, that's it. The M.2 SSD is installed. It's now locked in place. And so if I go ahead and just move that latch, you can see it popped out there. And now if I just do it again, put it back in there, let me go ahead and reset the latch. That's it. That's all you need to do to be able to install that. This is a fantastic design implementation, but it doesn't stop there. Hey, Abraham, is this the first motherboard to showcase, or is he? Yes, this is the first motherboard that I am going to be covering right now. I did talk about some of the design consistent attributes that were present on all of the X570 motherboards, but this is the first one. We're then going to be talking next about the ProART board, and then the ROG STRIX board, and then lastly, the Tough Gaming board, okay? So, yeah, in terms of, somebody's asking also, put the M.2 closer to the CPU socket. You can actually see right here, at the top of the board, there's an M.2 right here that's pretty much almost close right there. So there's actually three. So you have one right here, you have another one right here, and we could do the same right there. So if you wanted me to install it there, it won't make a difference. The Q.Latch design works the same on any of these slots. So just, again, angle it in there and lock it into place, and you can see I've locked it in. Now, the cool thing, though, is now let's go a little bit more into that we've done further design thinking. So most of our M.2 SSDs, if we take a look at an example here, this is like a, you see this commonly with 256, 512 gigabytes, even some 1 terabytes, but there's no NAND on the back. So you don't need to worry about thermally kind of dissipating heat from the back, really only kind of the top. But newer M.2 SSDs that are now getting to be much more dense can actually have NAND that's stacked on the back and is also stacked on the front along with the controller. And so in that type of situation, here's another M.2 SSD again that shows you the same type of scenario where you have NAND on the front and you also have NAND on the back, okay? And what you will see here is that this board, being the Extreme, is we actually have another thermal pad. If you remove this blue film, there's a heatsink that's underneath that. So you actually have a 2 heatsink design implementation. So here's the heatsink here with the thermal pad, and then here's a thermal pad with the heatsink underneath. So then that means that when you place this M.2 SSD there, right, we are going to be able to have essentially the thermal dissipation be for the top of the drive as well as for the bottom. Hey, Drake, we don't have an actual white motherboard in this passive chipset lineup, but I can just show you some pictures that we do have the ROG B550 STRIX -A board, as well as we do also have the Prime series, the X570 Pro, which is also in white, okay? So there you go. So that is kind of one of the cool design implementations. And here, for that kind of DIMM.2 add-in card, just so you can see how it works, so you can see there's the M.2 slot, and all you would need to do is just put in the M.2 SSD, it would mount in there, and then you would put that back over here in this DIMM.2 slot right over here, okay? So let me go ahead and remount the, I'm going to go ahead and actually remount the screen, and I'm going to show you how this just looks up a little bit, because of course we can show you in photos, but I just want to show you what the actual Extreme looks like. It kind of lit up there, so give me 1 second here, and I will also take a look and see if there's any questions. Yes, Hansi is asking is, what about kind of the spacing? So you'll also see that I will show that again and kind of compare the two boards where we can actually compare. So if I bring up an image right here, that the actual slot spacing layout has kind of been more suited and designed here for essentially large graphics card configurations, kind of a 4-slot wide. Generally, multi-GPU configurations are not common, but in the Extreme segmentation, we might find that there might be somebody that'd be more likely to do that. So as you can see here, if we go ahead and now switch over and we go to the Extreme board, and again, we put it, let's say, side by side compared to the Dark Hero board, which we use as a more traditional slot space layout, you'll actually see that the slots are much more spaced out. So this does allow for a different type of PCI slot configuration. So if you are kind of looking for that kind of more wide PCI slot spacing, that is going to be another advantage of the CROSSHAIR 8 Extreme compared to the traditional Extreme board. Okay. So let me just go ahead and mount this back on here so you can kind of just see what this looks like quickly. And I will show this to you guys here in a moment. There we go. I don't need to screw it in too much. Just a little bit to kind of keep it straight. Okay. And I will just kind of put this resting in there just so we can kind of see a little bit of the effect there. Move my M.2 SSD here. And we will connect this for you guys. So let me go ahead and I think I have, yep, I've got a power supply right here. And we'll just show you kind of guys a little bit of what the aesthetic looks like once it's lit up. Now, of course, you know, it's going to definitely look best in the dark, but since we're streaming here, we got to keep the lights on. So if we take a look right here, guys, you can see there's kind of a little bit of the new kind of design, what we call the Strike 3 design here. So the RGB lights up there. Kind of maybe darken that just a little bit for you so you can see a little bit. You can see here the OLED screen. So this is a 2-inch OLED screen. It's larger than the previous generation, which was 1.3 or 1.8 inches in terms of the size. So this is a larger screen. Now the flickering that you see, you won't necessarily see that. That's a little bit through just kind of the frame rate of the actual camera, but this can be broadly customized. You can put in your own items. You can put different types of temperatures. You can put in different types of information that is aligned specifically with an AIDA 64, which is bundled with this motherboard. We can then have the RGB here in terms of the light, the RGBI, the RGI, which lights up. And then if I kind of put my hands there, you'll see right here that there is a full RGB light strip that's on the side of the board right here. So this will be kind of giving you this nice fill lighting right there. Yes, so somebody's asking right there, can you go ahead and customize the OLED screen? You can go ahead and customize the OLED screen, okay? So that gives you, again, those kind of 3 zones of lighting that are right there. So right here, one zone, the OLED, here's another zone, and then the ROG right here is going to be another zone, and then right here, this light bar. And keep in mind that, of course, the board itself does have, let me see right here if I can point them out. Right here, down here, these are just some of them. It has these RGB headers that are, of course, on there. So this board does come with 3 RGB headers, but it does also kind of bring even a little bit more. So the Extreme is kind of really always packing in a lot of additional items in terms of kind of the value proposition. And one of the really cool things that it adds on is going to be a advanced fan hub. And this fan hub also includes an aRGB hub. So let me actually show you some images of that. And I will put this board back over here up in a moment, but just so and set that aside. But I will show you this, guys, here, right here. So this is the included, and it comes inside the box. So this is not something that you have to purchase additionally. So this is a brand new, essentially, fan hub and aRGB hub that comes included with the board. So you connect this to the board, and in addition to the 3 that you have on the motherboard, you then will have even more additional headers that you have here. And the great thing is that, of course, you can do multiplexing. So you can use one single header and you could run like a splitter or multiplexer cable off of that. And that would even give you more flexibility. And it does come with also some adhesive there, so you can go ahead and mount it inside your chassis. So if you want to run all of those cables to that first, and then you can run that to the motherboard, you have that available to you. Okay. Yes, so Alan, we did cover that a little bit earlier. So you were asking about, do they come out of the box ready to support Ryzen 5000 series Zen 3 based CPUs? Yes, that is correct. In actuality, all ASUS motherboards since late in 2020, production firmware-wise, they all ship with up-to-date UEFI that allow for out-of-box support. So it doesn't matter whether if you're buying a B550 motherboard and an X570 motherboard, all of them now ship with out-of-the-box CPU support, but all of these all do 100% have out-of-the-box CPU support for Ryzen 5000 series CPUs. Okay, so even though they all support USB BIOS flashback, you don't even need to worry about using them. So that fan hub comes included with there. But it doesn't stop there. This board kind of does a lot of things that are really, really, really special and very unique. So I'm going to go ahead and bring up a slide here that we'll actually talk about here. So let me, if I get a little bit closer, but it's going to be the fan headers. So let me adjust that a little bit. So right here, we actually have traditionally, you would have like your CPU header and your CPU optional header. And there you would connect something like a traditional 240 AIO, or you could, of course, connect you know, a tower heatsink. But a lot of people here are going to be using maybe 360s or 480 type water cooling configurations. And so we actually have something that we call a radiator grouping output. Now, traditionally, when you talk about the fan headers that are on a motherboard, the actual amperage output, the number of essentially the power that can be provided by that is about 1 amp, which is definitely more than enough for usually 2, 3, even 4 fans. But depending on the configuration and kind of the demands from a user, we've actually specifically designed the headers that are on this board to be higher. So the actual radiator output is going to be 3 amps. So that's going to be much higher. So it gives you a lot more granularity and control that pretty much whatever fans you want to be able to use relative to their performance envelope, you can power. And the board also does come included with a splitter. So there will be actually a splitter inside the box that'll be something like this. So again, if you wanted to have something along this lines, where if you had something like a, you know, 360, you know, rad with, you know, 3 fans, you would take your splitter cable, you would attach that splitter cable to the included one. And this comes, like I said, this will be inside the box. This is actually the first time we've included a multiplex splitter cable that will also be included. But then you just run that one single connection, and that will run to the fan rad connection. So let me go ahead and just show you what that would look like, guys, here. So you can see right here that would have then all run through one single header. So that is kind of a unique attribute that we have here. You don't have to worry about that. So that makes it kind of very simple and very clean. Hansa, yes, as far as the actual, the fan hub controller does come included with the board. And you can run both fans and aRGB based devices from that adapter, okay? And next up, there's actually also going to be another item that has also been improved upon, and specifically on this board is going to be another specialized kind of fan header. So one of the cool things that we've done for this generation is going to be, we've worked with actually certain partners out there. These are from Silverstone, but they're also, I think we have them from BitPhoenix is another partner, and there's some other partners that are in the works. But this is supporting a technology that we call Hydranode. And so the cool thing with the Hydranode technology is traditionally, let's say you took 3 fans, right? And we already talked about kind of that grouping configuration where we said if you connected kind of those 3 fans to that one radiator, all those fans would be on what's called a mirrored output signal. So that means that 1 fan, 2 fan, 3 fan, if I was, let's say, running those like at 1200 RPM, like a fan curve, they would all run that mimicked fan curve. And there's definitely nothing wrong with that. That's actually works great, especially if you're doing something like a, you know, radiator-based configuration, because these are all kind of focused at probably providing performance to one specific part of the system. So maybe kind of like the CPU cooling or something along those lines. But in some situations, depending on how you run your cables, you might maybe have this fan, these 2 fans here in the front, and this fan might be at the top, right? And you might actually want to run maybe different types of fan configuration. But if you have run that to essentially a single fan header, that has not been possible. You essentially had to use a single control output signal for all of those. But the cool thing here is now with the Hydranode technology is you can use the same splitter. So that splitter that I showed before, you can use that splitter. You would connect those to each one of your corresponding fans that you would have. They do need to be Hydranode compatible, which is the reason why I noted this earlier. Okay, but once you actually make all those connections, we then have specific headers that are going to be on the board that support the Hydranode technology, but then each one of the fans could actually be independently controlled. So if you wanted to set one to one RPM level and then another to another RPM level, you could do that. And there's also some cool kind of bi-directional information. There's some ICs that are built in here that gives us more advanced information like operation lifespan, so you can actually find out how the fan's been running. You can get the name of the fan information and some other kind of cool points. So it's kind of a more advanced level of control and granularity that we're giving you if you're running kind of multiple fans from a specific header. So this is also a really cool level of functionality that we have if you have the compatible supported fans. So again, recapping here, when we talk about those fan controls, you've got the Hydranode, which is going to give you the ability to control multiple fans, but have independent values for each one of those fans. Grouped radiator fan configurations that you can, of course, have great control with through the firmware environment or through the UEFI BIOS. And we still maintain our fan calibration and tuning options. So that means that you can have essentially a one-click button within the firmware environment or within the operating system where all your fans, it will figure out what their speed is. It'll ramp them all the way down to a 0 RPM level and then ramp them all the way up to their highest RPM level. And then you'll have a full fan curve that's been plotted out for you, and you can customize that, or you can use things like presets like silent, turbo, whatever it is that you want. Those are all still going to be baseline options. Now, lastly, another very cool technology that this board also integrates in, the Extreme, is going to be something that we call AiCooling. And with AiCooling, the cool thing about that is that there's an additional hardware IC that is built onto the board. And what this does is it monitors essentially the CPU temperature and stability for the CPU temperature. So what we're essentially doing is that once we actually see that the CPU temperature is stable, so generally that means that it's being held for at least about 60 seconds, we can then automatically ramp down the actual fan duty cycle. And we'll generally do that to not deviate more than about 5C. But an example might be that maybe you're running something like, like 1800 RPM, it could drop down to like 1500 RPM. So it could even have a quieter level of performance. And this is all done automatically. You don't even need to do anything within the fan curve. This kind of technology was implemented because for some users, maybe they're not as familiar with how to do things within a fan curve, or they don't want to set it up. So the great thing is all you need to do is just toggle on AiCooling, and it will automatically essentially rebalance the fans to the quietest level of operation, which works really, really well for when you're watching things like a stream, looking at photos online, checking out email, looking at a forum post, doing anything that's essentially light. But the moment that, of course, there's more load that's placed on the system, you doing gaming, you, of course, doing any type of serious task that's going to utilize more cores, more threads, produce more heat, then it'll automatically ramp back up and align with whatever the fan curve was. So that is a pretty cool technology that we have baked onto the motherboard as well. So the next thing I want to kind of talk about here is going to be, I think, a really cool technology that we have on our motherboards, and that's going to be from the kind of the DRAM perspective, and it's going to be something that we call OptiMEM III. And OptiMEM III, it sometimes is a little bit kind of difficult for some people to kind of understand what the kind of the relative value proposition is. And so that's hopefully what I want to be able to talk about a little bit here, is going to be, what do you get when you essentially talk about kind of OptiMEM III. And so specifically OptiMEM III has to do with the trace topology and the layout on the motherboard. And the key strength and the kind of the benefit that you have is that it allows us to have extremely high performance signals essentially for the CPU to the DRAM. So when I put my DRAM in here, I'm just going to put some DRAM sticks in here. It doesn't really matter. Most DRAM has what's referred to as some form of an XMP profile. And that XMP profile will carry frequency, voltage, and timings. And the really cool thing about the OptiMEM III technology is that you can actually run more efficient and effective timings in relation to the frequency that you're running. So we've actually done tests, internal testing when we design and develop the board. So take, for instance, like when we first developed OptiMEM III on the CROSSHAIR 8, we were able to evaluate and go, okay, let's make a board that has OptiMEM III, and then we have one that doesn't have OptiMEM III. And can we actually test a difference in terms of what is achievable? And how would this translate to you in the real world? Well, as a real world user, let's say you bought a stick of, let's say, 16 gigabyte kit. It's 3600 megahertz CAS 15. it might have a voltage of 1.35. The benefit with OptiMEM III is you could go actually into the UEFI and you would actually be able to lower it by 100 millivolts. So you could actually go from 1.35 and run that same actually stick of memory at that timing and at that frequency at 1.25. And so this just allows you to have better efficiency and lower thermals in relation to how the system is running relative to the DRAM. There can also be benefits in terms of efficiency for your timing adjustment. So anybody that kind of is aware of AMD, it can be sensitive to DRAM timings and kind of helping to improve its overall performance. So that kit that we talked about, 3600 CAS 15, if we attempt, CAS 16, which is a very common CAS kit configuration, on that OptiMEM III board, we could go in and we could drop the timings by increasing the voltage. So let's say we went up to 1.4 for the voltage, but we were able to drop it down to, let's say now, a CAS 15 kit in terms of its operation, where on the same motherboard that didn't have the OptiMEM III memory topology, the board would not actually post. It would not be able to reliably run at that value. So there can be definite performance improvements by leveraging OptiMEM III. By default, it's not inherently just going to allow your memory to work at a faster or more efficient speed. But for those of you that want to spend some time to kind of tweak and tune and tailor your settings to be able to find what you can get out of them, that's really where the technology really can shine to be able to give you an improvement in experience. So that's a really cool design benefit. So that is going to be another really kind of advantageous aspect on the CROSSHAIR 8 Extreme. Now, in addition to the CROSSHAIR 8 Extreme having that OptiMEM III, we also have Dynanic OC Switcher, which I know for many is a feature kind of they're really excited about, and they haven't necessarily fully understood what that necessarily means. But what Dynanic OC Switcher is giving you kind of the best of the both worlds. And so ultimately, when you talk about kind of performance tuning your CPU, you essentially have kind of, prior to Dynanic OC Switcher, you had kind of really two choices. One was that you could choose something that was called per CCX tuning, which essentially meant that you would have your frequency set for the CCX across the board. Now with per CCX, we gave you a little bit more granularity, because if there's two CCXs, you could have one CCX, let's say, run at like 4.2 and then another one at like 4.3. But if we were being just kind of more generalized, let's say 4.2 or 4.3 across all cores, that's great if you're running maybe, let's say, a very heavily threaded application, and you could benefit from having that consolidated frequency across all cores, more so than, let's say, having some of the less cores be able to ramp up to a higher frequency, which generally is more advantageous for kind of gaming and for general application usage, because many applications and games use a lower number of cores or threads. But the great thing is, with the essentially PBO technology that AMD has gone and enabled, they have very aggressive turbo boosting behavior that allows the CPU to dynamically ramp up in terms of its frequency when it's lightly threaded. And the great thing is here with Dynanic OC Switcher is that you can do both. You can have program variables to be able to go ahead and have the system that when essentially it's hitting a certain load parameter kick in to benefit from that all core setup. But at the same time, you could switch back that when you're then opening up your web browser, you're playing a game, you could essentially benefit from the PBO-based adjustment, which you could also tune and tailor the PBO, because we have full sets of parameters within the UEFI environment to go ahead and tweak and tune all these things. So keep in mind, you still need to go into the UEFI environment to make your adjustments. We do have all these options available to you in the actual UEFI environment, so you don't have to kind of worrying about, like, if you're not familiar with which settings. They are kind of pretty straightforward in terms of that you can go into the AI tweaker section and you have access to the per CCX, or you can also go ahead and have access to per CCX as well as the PBO adjustment parameters. So it pretty much just comes down to which option you're looking for in terms of making your tuning adjustments. But with Dynanic OC Switcher, that is what gives you kind of the flexibility to kind of be able to get the best of both worlds. And so the three boards that we're going to have that have the Dynanic OC Switcher technology is the CROSSHAIR 8 Extreme, along with the CROSSHAIR 8 Dark Hero, and then also the ROG STRIX X570-E Gaming 2, which will be coming out a little bit later. Those all have the Dynanic OC Switcher technology. The ProART motherboard does not have the Dynanic OC Switcher technology. So Joaquin is bringing in a great question that is actually one of the other things that I wanted to be able to touch about and touch on, and that was going to be the I/O specification here. So the Extreme is also a very special board along with the ProART board and our previous B550 ProART board, and offering Thunderbolt connectivity natively on board. Now he's asking about, kind of seeing broader kind of Thunderbolt specification. There is a cost and complexity integrating Thunderbolt, so I don't necessarily think that we're going to see it spread out to a wide set of products, partly because USB 3 can already offer very high speed throughput. Keep in mind that you can have USB 3.2 Gen 2 by 2, which is 20 gigabits of throughput. That's very, very high performance. And for the vast majority of users, they don't even have devices that could support that type of saturated bandwidth. So USB is already easily covering that. Thunderbolt is going to be most advantageous when you not only need even faster bandwidth, so take for instance 40 gigabits, but you're also going to be able to leverage things like the USB power delivery that would be supported through that interconnect, and daisy chaining support, which can be more common in specialized configurations where you might run this out to like a ProArt series monitor, and then maybe like a Thunderbolt storage array that has like some type of storage enclosure. But this board does give you that connectivity. And again, to kind of recap here, in terms of all the I/O specifications, you've got the Wi-Fi 6E on board, the Thunderbolt 4 on board, the 10 gigabit LAN that's on board, the 2.5 gigabit LAN that's on board, and then of course all your high-speed ports that are also on here as well. So it pretty much has all the key I/O specifications that you could ask for that are on here. Sorry, let me just see right here. Yeah, so Hans, when you're asking actually about kind of the benefit, I think, of the Dynanic OC Switcher, as you noted, PBO2 really is going to be best suited for looking to be able to leverage the overall performance benefit from maximizing essentially the dynamic nature of kind of the turbo technology. So having the CPU being able to scale up its frequency based on load and the relative power envelope. Now, it's important to keep in mind that there is a kind of a variability to PBO because it is an overclocking pursuit. It's based on certain operating parameters of the CPU. The same exact CPUs, even with the same exact cooling configurations, won't have the same exact results. This is why tuning from a PBO narrative can be a little bit more tricky, as opposed to, let's say, the kind of the consistency and the simplicity of an all-core overclock that you can do when you're approaching it from like that per CCX. But the really key benefit, again, of the Dynanic OC Switcher technology is that you don't have to kind of pick either one, is that you have the ability to tune your system in both ways and ultimately benefit from both of these scenarios. And again, if you've got a great CPU and you've got a great cooling solution, you're going to be able to get a great experience out of that kind of pairing and that overall kind of experience. So those are the majority of the items that we wanted to kind of touch on here. I do want to kind of just show you a little bit of a slide here that reinforces that AIOC technology that we talked a little bit about, where you can see example right here is that you have that fan curve where it was maybe operating at 2100 RPM, and then once the AIOC is enabled, it drops down to 1300 RPM. There's a little bit of a delta in terms of the temperature difference. We have a kind of internal algorithm and rule set that it won't exceed a 4 to 5 C delta. If it does, then it will revert back up to maintain cooling performance. So it's not all of a sudden like your system is going to be going from being operating very cool to all of a sudden very hot. It's just we ultimately realize that most users generally tend to prioritize noise along with a balance in terms of the thermal effectiveness of their kind of setup. And so here you get a great balance of that. If you don't know anything about fan curves and kind of tuning them, just click the button and it will help to automatically ramp that back down for you and give you a quieter experience while still maintaining very, very good cooling. Now, last but not least, I do want to touch again on the ASUS AI noise canceling technology. I'm going to show you here just a little bit of a video that is from one of our tough gaming boards, but the software fundamentally is the same in terms of all of these boards. Again, whether it's going to be on the ProArt, the aRGB board, the tough gaming board, they're all going to work the same, where it's within the Armoury Crate software environment. So you pretty much just have to go, click a button, select essentially the device that you want to actually have the AI noise canceling enabled on. This can be on an analog microphone or can be on a digital microphone. And as I also noted, this AI noise canceling technology does work bidirectionally. So on your voice, as well as also it works on incoming voice. So you have that flexibility. This is based on advanced machine learning. We've sampled over, I think, 500 million samples. It's very effective, and it also has very low CPU overhead. Even comparing this to, let's say, GPU-assisted items, like, let's say, RTX voice, we've actually found in our performance analysis that actually it's better in terms of CPU utilization. So if you really are kind of trying to maximize the highest level of performance, then you could use this as an alternate to utilizing something like, let's say, RTX voice, or if you're running an AMD GPU, and you don't have that option available to you, the great thing is you have that option available to you here. And this is all part of the SupremeFX audio design, which is kind of the next item that I wanted to touch on here. So if we again kind of take a look a little bit at the board here, I'm going to put this down here, and I want to show you what this looks like here. So give me 1 second. I'm going to go ahead and remove this plate here, but we have our isolated audio design on these boards. And so this is an area that, you know, we have focused on really kind of generation to generation, always really trying to improve upon the experience in terms of what you have in terms of onboard audio. And the goal really with an isolated audio path was to help to kind of mitigate any type of noise that could affect the performance of the codec, helping it to reach its actually highest level of performance. Because you can have a part and you can put it on the motherboard, but due to all the kind of the surrounding components, it can heavily influence its overall operating performance. And so a key benefit that we have with the isolated audio path, which works horizontally and vertically, is it helps to essentially limit noise and interference from reaching the codec and allowing it to reach a higher level of performance. And this ultimately helps to translate into a better experience in music, movies, games, you know, richer sound that's more detailed, it's more warm. On the aRGB board specifically, we also elevate them further by also pairing them with an ES Saber DAC and amp that help to improve the tonality and clarity and help to offer a little bit of a higher punch in terms of the driving strength. So even if you're using higher quality analog headphones, like I've used, let's say, like Hi-Fi Man planar magnetic headphones on this, and they can comfortably power those headphones and give you a nice quality experience. But let me go ahead and show you guys here what I'm talking about. Sorry, one more screw that I need to remove here. There we go. Okay. And I think I can get that right here. Okay, cool. So this is actually, I've removed this plate that we have right there, but all of the boards that we're going to be talking about have an isolated audio design. The ROG boards have the most advanced version. Here's the SupremeFX audio codec. That is going to be higher on this board. This is the ALC 4082, so it offers very impressive signal noise ratio and THD performance. It's very high performing codec. Here you have your audio grade capacitors that are right here. You also have these little guys right here, which are switching MOSFETs, which help to actually reduce pop and noise, especially when you're rebooting your system and general noise. These are kind of your filtering caps that you have right here. The audio jacks that are over here are also illuminated, but this little path line right there is the actual isolated audio path, okay? And then down right here, you can see that you have the ESS Saber 9018 Q2C DAC. And so this DAC has been specifically wired for the headphone output. So when you're connecting this to the front of your chassis, you're directly wired to be able to get an outstanding experience from the headphone output. So this is all going to be geared, of course, at being able to give you just a better experience in music, movies, and games. But the kind of board does take it further, where it does also come included with this guy. This is the ROG Clavis, which is a high-grade USB-C DAC and amp. So this also comes included with the motherboard. So you could use this on your phone, you could use this on your laptop, you could use this on your Nintendo Switch. It's just a USB-C based DAC and amp, and that comes included inside the box. Okay. And I can actually show you here the audio design. Hey, so somebody's asking about, you know, the design intent in terms of kind of the PCI slot layout. And part of the design intent here with the slot layout is that the majority, of course, modern builders, when they're building systems now, are only utilizing one GPU. They're not using multiple GPU configurations. So on this board, we did suit it in terms of the overall design configuration for a 2 GPU, a large 2 GPU configuration, but really that's all we see on high-end configurations. We don't see users, of course, running 3 or 4-way configurations in the past where you would see that there's more PCI slots. Also, due to the high-end integration of many of the other devices that you have on this, there's not the requirement, and we've kind of focused the PCI lane assignments to different types of I/O interconnects, whether that's going to be, having more additional front USB-C connections, the Thunderbolt 4, the 10 gigabit LAN that's been integrated on the motherboard, even the M.2, all of that has kind of been more balanced out to be in line with what users are commonly kind of working with, whether it's going to be in kind of this enthusiast or in the high-end enthusiast kind of configuration environment. Okay, so let me just go ahead and show you this right here. This is the overall kind of audio design layout that we talked about. Again, the new 4082 codec, the ASUS Sabre DAC implementation, those audio grade capacitors, the switching MOSFETs, and the LEDs, which are also illuminated. And again, this just really helps to provide a great experience. It ties in with that ASUS AI noise canceling tech, and you also still have the full, of course, Sonic Studio 3 software suite, which also comes with spatial audio support. So, if you guys have maybe tried out some games that are out there, there are actually quite a number of games that are now starting to come with, like DTS, actually spatial audio, which can actually allow for more immersion and detailing. If your motherboard didn't actually support that, you couldn't actually enable those options to be able to unlock that type of spatial experience, which can work with stereo speakers and headsets. This is different than just applying kind of post-processing, because since the game has actually been mixed and mastered to be able to support spatial audio, you can really actually notice some kind of distinguishing, I'd say, audible cues in terms of kind of the overall experience that you have. So it's actually something, if you haven't tried it out, I would definitely say, consider trying it out. It's pretty sweet. And again, you have a large amount of options that are available to you in the Sonic Studio Suite. Now here, this is a kind of recap of what I noted before in terms of the fan headers. You can see, of course, all the CPU fan headers, the chassis fan headers, the difference in terms of the amperage output, 1 amp versus 3 amps, and then also the radiator fan output connections, and then also that fan controller, and you can see where the fan controller connects to. So these are all elements that really help to elevate the Extreme to really be a benchmark that if you're going to be doing a high-end build and you're going to have tons of fans, tons of aRGB devices, you're going to be running things like even like a water pump. That's another item too that you'll find that comparatively, not all of our boards will have this, but on our RG board, on the Creator board, they will have an actual dedicated water pump header. These water pumps can take a little bit more power than, let's say, traditional base like AIO paste pumps. So you may want to actually power them via that. So you do have a dedicated header that you can run for that type of setup and configuration as well. Okay, so I think that probably covers everything that I wanted to run through on the CROSSHAIR VIII Extreme. I will make one last point. I think probably it's part and parcel. Probably most people kind of realize that the board does have this, but of course, does come included with a fully integrated I/O shield. If you're not kind of aware of that, that just makes the installation process that much more streamlined, that much easier. And there is an inherent benefit to doing this. The bonding contact of actually bonding this, which this is an ASUS innovation, just like the Hydranode, just like the AiCooling, just like the Dynanic OC Switcher, and so many things that we've talked about, which were first designed on ASUS boards and on ROG motherboards. The integrated I/O shield is another hallmark from ASUS that we designed and innovated and implemented. This actually also does provide superior ESD performance because when you're plugging in different types of devices, you might realize that you actually can carry over a static discharge. Having this actually bonded directly to the back improves actual static discharge performance. So you actually get very, very good performance. And that also even works on things like what we call the LAN port. All these boards do feature something that's called LAN Guard design, which the LAN Guard design means that the internal portion of the actual LAN itself has actually specialized diodes that help to actually absorb surges as well as ESD discharges. And this actually is something that it might be worth kind of covering just a little bit more closely, because some people aren't necessarily always aware that this is present in our motherboards, but something, again, kind of we pioneered and innovated on in ROG boards. So you can see the difference is that for some kind of RJ45 Ethernet ports that are out there, they can still use coil wound based type of design implementations, which actually can still be done by human assembly, as opposed to what we've done. And we were the first to implement unilaterally when we implemented LAN Guard on RG boards. But all the boards that we're talking about do feature this, where they have an SMT production board, which means that it's robotically assembled and layered down. And then there's diode circuitry that's on there. And this helps to actually provide superior performance. We can actually measure what's called signal and eye performance, packet loss, and ultimately you can actually get better performance here along with improved protection. So while protecting things like the USB ports, we're also even protecting and improving the connection of things like your LAN port. So that is a cool kind of little thing that maybe you knew, maybe you didn't know, but it is something that we do kind of think about in terms of the overall design implementation. So that wraps up everything on the Extreme board. I will lastly note that just kind of some extras we talked about. Remember that this board does come included with that fan controller, an aRGB hub, right? That is present, but you also do get some additional extras that also come included with this. It does come with the VGA brace, so there's a little holder that comes included with the board, so that if you want to kind of minimize any type of sag, if that's something that bothers you, that does come included inside the box, okay? And it does also come with a 1-year license for AIDA64 that is included inside. You get the full license key, so that also works well with the integrated OLED screen. That's all going to be covered there. And you also do get a screwdriver. There's a little ASUS ROG screwdriver that comes included. And your drivers also are not on an optical disc. You get them on a USB flash drive. So the Extreme definitely packs quite a bit. Again, to recap here, this is everything that you're going to get just from a high level on the Extreme board compared to, let's say, the Dark Hero. So, you get a more premium design aesthetic, an upgraded VRM, an upgraded heatsink assembly, more M.2 expansion, higher end networking with 10G and Wi-Fi 6E. The audio is going to be higher end. You get much more USB connectivity, especially with that Thunderbolt 4 and the USB 3.Gen 2x2 connect, as well as those 4 internal headers. More advanced RGB connectivity and implementation on the board, much more extensive fan tuning and control connectivity with AiCooling, the Hydranode support, the special radiator fan control support, and then those extras with the OLED live dash display, AIDA64, the BullGuard AV, the graphics card holder, the different space layout, the right angle connectors, the dual BIOS, which again I talked a little bit earlier about, is also on this board, and the V-Latch implementation. Something that we didn't talk about but is also present on the Dark Hero is that do keep in mind that this board also does maintain what we call our differential dye sense monitoring, and that essentially just gives you the ability to have a specialized onboard design that allows for more accurate voltage measurement and software. What people don't necessarily realize, it's not what you see is what you get. Generally, the most accurate way to get voltage is you actually have to have a specific contact point, measure that, and you would want to measure it with something like an oscilloscope or a very high-performing multimeter. And even then, there can actually be challenges because you actually have a droop and roll-off that can actually occur. But the benefit of our design is that we actually have a specialized differential sensing circuit, which is on board, that helps us to compensate and actually know the power that's going in to the power that's coming out, that's ultimately being supplied to the CPU, and this can translate into the voltage that's being supplied. So many times users think they kind of see a value and then they see software and they think that they should kind of be one-to-one, and that's actually not accurate. But when you go about tuning on an RG board, the benefit that you're going to have, especially on the Crosshair series, so this would be for the Crosshair 8 Hero, the Crosshair 8 Dark Hero, as well as on the Extreme, they all feature this differential dye sense monitoring design implementation. And I think I actually can show you guys here just a little bit of a quick slide if kind of anybody's interested in this, because it's a pretty cool design implementation that we have here. And again, it's exclusive to ROG motherboards. You're not going to find this from other competitors. So it is kind of a key design benefit that we do offer. Yeah, here we go. Let me see if I can bring this up right here. There we go. Yep. So here you can see actually the design implementation. So traditionally, right, you would just kind of go through here from the VRM power plane to the socket to the die, Super I/O, which is on the motherboard, and then to your third-party monitoring. But here you can see we have the differential sensing circuit, and this helps us to actually have a much more accurate representation of actually the voltage. So if you're kind of really wanting to maximize efficiency in terms of what you're putting in, this can really help you. And this can be actually even more important on a platform like AMD, where when you're utilizing PBO, you're using actually a power envelope that the CPU is determining based on kind of certain operating parameters, and voltage plays a key part in that in terms of how the boosting algorithm works. So being kind of as efficient as you can in terms of the amount of voltage you're dialing in allows you to get a better experience generally with PBO. So that is a really cool feature that we do have. Hey, Zach, no M.2 motherboards that we have on the X570 lineup. Everything that we're talking about here is all on the ATX side of the fence. No micro ATX baseboards. Hey, Nelson, happy to have you here, man. Thanks. Yeah, this is a Wi-Fi 6E router because this is a theme on any one of the X570 passively cooled motherboards that we're talking about. They all feature Wi-Fi 6E on board. So to be able to unlock Wi-Fi 6E, you do need a Wi-Fi 6E compatible router, and this is an example, one with the AXE 11000. But do keep in mind that they are all fully backwards compatible with Wi-Fi 6, as well as even 802.11 AC. So if you're running a Wi-Fi 6 router or a Wi-Fi 5 router, then you are still good to go. And I would note that even if you are going to be kind of upgrading to a Wi-Fi 6 router and you get something like our RTX AX82U, the AX86U, or like our GS 5400, those are all Wi-Fi 6 routers. Even though they're not Wi-Fi 6E, you're going to get very impressive throughput and low latency. You could legitimately see, you know, 400 to 800 megabits of real-world wireless throughput with low latency that can really offer you a true kind of hardline experience, but all done through a wired connection experience, while also giving you all the other benefits that you get by going over to a router, right? So next up, let's go ahead and talk about this guy right here, and that is going to be the ProART board. So this is a really exciting board as well. The ProART is going to be part of our lineup, which is really focused towards creators, towards professionals, towards users that aren't necessarily gamers. They're users that are maybe going to be, you know, working under audio production, video production, photography. Maybe they're doing portraiture, landscape. Maybe you're doing 3D modeling, content creation type of workflows, or maybe you're just, you know, doing things under the social media kind of house, right? You're working to be able to output things to different types of social media platforms, right? This is where we really target our ProART series of products, is that they're focused towards those prosumers and professionals that are really looking to be able to have a product that has been purpose designed for somebody that's going to be working off of their system. These boards are kind of an extension of what we have within our WS series products. So we do have a X570 WS board, the ACE model, as well as the X570 Prime board. I know somebody was asking a little bit earlier about kind of white motherboards. So let me just go ahead and show you those two boards just kind of for reference, and we can kind of put them all side by side. So we're going to go ahead and load up here the creator board. And again, for somebody that's wondering about availability, this board will be coming in at $429.99, and you'll see it kind of listed hopefully by the end of the month, moving into early September. And again, the CROSSHAIR VIII Extreme, which we talked about, is $799. It's currently listed at pre-order. You can see the link in the chat, and that one will be hopefully shipping by the end of the month. So here we've got the ProART creator, and we're just going to kind of throw this next to some of our other kind of content creation centric boards. So we've got one with the Prime Xi70, which is a great option if you're looking for something in white. This has also been a very popular board for those that are looking for something in that kind of content creation wheelhouse. And then the Pro WS X570 ACE, which actually is really before the ProART ban, our series that we focused at for kind of content creation professionals, those that were using their system for, you know, work, right? Which science and simulation, photography, videography, audio production, 3D modeling, any one of those. So you can see three fantastic, really cool looking boards that we have within that. But the ProART is our latest model that we have here. And it really does offer quite a number of really cool kind of design specifications. So one, we'll put it under here. We'll be able to take a closer look. But it's got a really beautiful, clean design aesthetic on it, where it's got this nice black aesthetic throughout, but it has some light gold accents. This complements a lot of what we're doing in our ProART series products, like our ProART series monitors. You, of course, have that large passive heatsink for the chipset. You have 3 M.2 SSDs that can be supported. One right here, and then 2 down here. We still maintain the captive screw design, so if I remove these heat sinks, the screws don't get lost. And this also does have the same Q.Latch design implementation that I talked about, right? So again, if I was to remove this one right here, we can show you guys. So you can see right there, gone ahead and removed it. There's the thermal pad, and you can see I've got the M.2 SSD, no screws. Can I do it without looking? We'll see right there. And you can see the drive. I've gone ahead and lifted it up. I can lay it back down, then lift it back into place and lock it, and that's it, no screws. So all three of those slots do have the Q.Latch design implementation. You have the USB-C header right there, the USB 3, and then of course on the rear I.O. you have the fully integrated I.O. shield, which this board does include Thunderbolt 4, 10 gigabit LAN, and 2.5 gigabit LAN as well. So let me go ahead and put this underneath so we can take a little bit of a closer look at it. Just gonna set my Extreme board over there. That's a pretty weighty board. I will tell you guys, if you want to work out with a board as a side benefit, you can definitely use the Extreme board as a board for maybe doing some curls with. I think it can work. So let's take a look here at the ProART board. Okay. There we guys go. We can see very, very nice looking board. So you have, of course, this nice shroud with the ProART, of course, design kind of language on there. These nice little gold accents right here. Very large heat sinks with fins. A 14 power stage design, teamed power stage with high quality alloy inductors, dual contact based design on here. We can see right here, you've got your CPU power connections, your CPU cooling connections right there. aRGB header. While this board isn't kind of really focused at users that want RGB connectivity, the board does still give you multiple RGB headers that are on there. So if you want to be able to go ahead and have RGB based fans, coolers, any type of products like that, you are good to go. Your USB Type-C internal header, your USB 3 high-speed header, your SATA 6G connections, and then you can see right there your M.2. So you have your M.2 right there, and then there's another two that are underneath those heat sinks. And again, this one is just like before with the others, where this one does have the Q.Latch design implementation, so it just locks it in place. And then my M.2 SSD, I can either remove it when it's unlocked, or I can pop it back in and lock it into place. So it's very simple. Let me see if I can get the lock in there. There it goes. It's now locked in place. And then I can put the heatsink on the board. Now this one doesn't have the M.2 backplate heatsink design like the higher end Extreme board. Here you can see the isolated audio design. This is Crystal Sound 3.0 with the S1220 audio codec that's on there, audio grade capacitors, an internal op-amp and amplifier. There's also Dpop noise filtering that's also on this board. You also get here AiCooling that we talked about here. So this is going to be present on this board. And it does also have a water pump fan header that's on there. So you do have the ability that if you wanted to, let's say, do custom water cooling on this board, it would still actually complement water cooling enthusiasts well. So you could get something like this, like your pump and res. You could connect that and have that be powered from the motherboard. You've got a robust level of fan headers. This board does have full Fan Expert 4, so that means you can fully calibrate and control any of the connected fans. It'll figure out the lowest speed, the maximum speed, and then give you one-touch options to be able to go ahead and tune them down. We didn't talk about it on the Extreme board, but this board does also give you what's called temperature input mapping. So traditionally, when you talk about where your fans respond, they're going to generally respond to the CPU. But in some scenarios, it actually might be better to have them respond to the GPU temperature. So you do have the ability that you can actually have the fans respond to the GPU temperature. All you need to do is go into the AI Suite software, and you would actually select the GPU as being your temperature input source. And then let's say your front intake fans, when it notices your actual GPU is warming up, could actually bring more intake airflow. So that is a benefit that we offer part of Fan Expert 4 is GPU temperature input mapping, along with different temperature input sources. And you also have the AIO and water pump headers on actually the ProART board. And some people wonder about on ProART, if you do have ECC memory compliance support. You do have ECC support. And for some of you might be wondering, why would I want to run maybe ECC memory? Generally, it's going to be most beneficial, even though the frequencies are going to be more conservative when you're running large density configurations, so like 64 or maybe 128 gigabytes of memory. And you're also going to have very long uptimes. And so that might mean that maybe you're leaving your system on for 8, 10, 12, 18, 24 hours, maybe multiple days, and not rebooting the system. In these type of scenarios, when you're also running maybe extended kind of rendering loads or kind of anything that might heavily be utilizing the system and active memory, having ECC memory can be a benefit in terms of long-term reliability. And so that is also kind of a hallmark of the ProART as well as the WS line, is extensive validation that we do with these boards so that you can feel really confident with them. Sorry, so let me just see if there's any questions there on that. Looks like somebody's asking about the ROG X570-E Gaming 2. We'll be talking about that board next up after the Creator board. As I believe one of my great colleagues from ASUS has noted, we don't yet have MSRP pricing on the ROG STRIX X570-E Gaming 2 and the Tough Gaming boards. Those, of course, will be priced lower than what you would see with, let's say, either our kind of ROG Crosshair 8 Hero or the ROG Crosshair 8 Dark Hero, as they are positioned underneath those boards. But right now, the only two price points that we have is for the Extreme, which is $799.99, and then $429.99 for the ProART Creator board. Okay, so let me go ahead and let me just double check here. Let's see if I can just bring up one other item here for the ProART board, because there's another really cool option that we've integrated here, and this is going to be called our ASUS Control Center Express technology. So in some such scenarios, you might necessarily have the need to kind of be able to remotely monitor or kind of even potentially manage the system. One of the cool things you do have with this board is that it does feature a network controller, and through our software front end, which then allows for a web accessible interface. You don't need an app for this. You can literally do it just through a web browser. So you can do it on your smartphone, you can do it on a tablet, you can do it on a system that has internet-enabled access, where you can actually see the system in real time. So you could start the system maybe running some type of workload, running a render, doing a batch conversion, something along those lines, and you could actually go away and you could see your system's temperature. You could see your actual system's operating values. So this is actually built into our ProART series motherboards. It's part of the ASUS Control Center Express technology that we have on there. And it's pretty cool in terms of just giving you an additional layer of kind of management and control and monitoring that you have available. This also, along with the ASUS ProART Creator Hub software, gives you a lot of cool flexibility. So if we take a look here at what the ProART Hub software looks like, go ahead and show this to you guys. There we go. So with the ProART Hub software right here, ProART Creator Hub, you do have a really nice integration that if you have things connected like a PA series monitor, so our ProART series monitor, you can see calibration information. You can actually have grouped launches, so you could pair things together. So like take for instance, if you do like Lightroom along with Photoshop, along with maybe a resizer application, or maybe a certain type of a filter application, or maybe even you have you like working with music, so you want to have your Spotify desktop client open up with your imaging application. You can have grouped applications and launch those all at one time, along with customized profiles. These can include things like fan targeted profiles and other operating profile elements, including even things like networking, where if you want to prioritize an application for networking purposes, maybe you're outputting for a stream, or maybe you're downloading files for, let's say, usage or integration within your workflow, you could prioritize the downloading of that file versus, let's say, just your local area connection. So there's a lot of flexibility that you have within the software, and it has a non-gamery, essentially, design aesthetic. So one that's really designed to be clean and minimal, and targeted towards just ease of use and giving you kind of what you want access to be able to improve upon your workflow and improve upon your experience. Now here's the ASUS AiNoise canceling tech that we also talk about, but I do also want to kind of show you right here. Yeah, I think we have it right here. The Control Center software. So with the Control Center Express, we actually do have a full video. You can check it out on our YouTube channel, but it actually does offer more than even what you see right here, which the flexible kind of interface, software blacklisting, registry tool, IP scanning, those things work better in a multiple deployment. So if you were to have multiple of these systems, that would work well. But for, I think, specific just end users that are going to have only a single system, the Control Center Express software is most valuable in terms of being able to remotely monitor your system. So being able to see like your CPU temperature, see if your system's up and running, and if maybe you had to, either shut down or restart your system or something along those lines, you have these what are called out-of-band management options available to you. So that covers the X570 ProART Creator Board. Really fantastic option right here. Again, it's going to be really well suited for those of you that need a high degree of expansion with up to 3 M.2, a lot of high-speed I/O connectivity, and of course, next-gen connectivity in terms of networking with Wi-Fi 6E, 10G, Thunderbolt 4, the USB 3 Gen 2, and of course that support for up to 3 M.2 SSDs. So really fantastic option right here. And like I said, coming at $429.99 a little bit later towards the end of the month as we move also into September. So last but not least, I want to go ahead and touch on the last two new boards that we have here within the lineup, which are going to be ROG STRIX and then also the Tough Gaming board. So let's go ahead and take a look at those guys. So first one here is going to be, we'll take a look at the X570 -E Gaming, and we'll take a look at the kind of current board that we have, and then we will take a look at the upgraded board. There we go. So this is the current X570-E Gaming 2. Fantastic board, has been really popular as a great kind of option before moving into the most premium boards that we have within the ROG CROSSHAIR series. Great for overclocking, great for general gaming. Still a very solid water cooling board as well. Has a very good quality audio, SupremeFX audio design, good team power stage delivery, efficient and effective heatsink assembly, which also actually has a heat pipe in there. Doesn't have the OptiMEM III, but it still has OptiMEM memory topology on there. Good I/O integration in terms of your connectivity. You still have the front USB-C header. You still have good RGB options on the board as well. So still very, very solid option. But when we step over here to now, the newer board, let me go ahead and get the newer board in here. You will definitely see the design difference between these two. So give me 1 second here. There we go. Oh, okay. So here you can see side by side, we've got the two boards. We have the original, and then on the right, we have the newer X570-E Gaming 2. So it definitely has a little bit more of an aggressive kind of stylized aesthetic. And the big benefit that you're going to get here by moving over to the essentially the update, the version 2 of this board is going to be, you're going to get the Wi-Fi 6E, you're going to get the 2.5 gigabit LAN that we talked about, the ASUS AiNoise canceling technology, the Dynanic OC Switcher technology is also going to be present on this board. And then kind of all those other attributes are going to be present that we talked about. You do also get that improvement in terms of the M.2 Q.Latch design implementation compared to the prior generation board. So very, very nice board in terms of its overall kind of core features and functions. And I think for probably most of you that are looking for a board that's going to hit that sweet spot in terms of having kind of all those key features that you want, where you've got a really solid and stable board, good overclocking capabilities, right? Still going to give you a lot of RGB expansion, lots of USB ports, good quality audio design, good networking options. This board may be the most popular, I think, for many in the kind of that sweet spot enthusiast space. It sits in a lot of different kind of users configurations at being a great option. And I think that if you definitely make the jump up over to something like the CROSSHAIR 8 Dark Hero, there's definitely a lot of value add that you get when you move over to the CROSSHAIR Dark Hero for users that even need more USB connectivity and want even a kind of more premium design aesthetic and want more specialized features and functions like, let's say, like the water cooling zone, or want the differential DiSense monitoring, or the OptiMEM III technology for kind of performance tuning. Those are all kind of really cool benefits, but we get to get a little bit kind of more niche. If maybe you're somebody that doesn't do a lot of clock tuning specifically with your DRAM, then this board might be a better choice for you. So this is a really, really great option, especially I think with the inclusion of the Dynanic OC Switcher. So you can get great experience right out of the box just by enabling PBO. And then if you want to take things further, you can go that route. So that is going to be the ROG STRIX -E Gaming 2. Really great option. And again, release and availability for this one is going to be coming a little bit later as we move into early Q4. So we'll definitely be giving you updates as we move into September timeframe on when this board will become available. Yeah, so Sebastian, right now we don't have a confirmed price point, but you can definitely expect it to kind of be in a fairly similar-ish price point as the current model, and definitely will be positioned below in terms of the price point of what you would have for something, let's say, like the ROG Crosshair 8 Dark Hero or even the ROG Crosshair 8 Wi-Fi model. Although keep in mind that one benefit is that while the Crosshair 8 Wi-Fi does offer some premium design implementations that are not present on the X570-E Gaming 2. Specifically, this model does have actually some upgrades that you wouldn't even see on the Crosshair board, the standard Crosshair, and that would be items like the Wi-Fi 6E technology and the Dynanic OC Switcher. But in terms of many of the other attributes that the board has, the Crosshair 8 Hero still is a higher end board. And more equally, in terms of this passive refresh kind of lineup, you would be comparing this board to the Crosshair 8 Dark Hero if you kind of wanted to try to have a parity experience in terms of kind of all the core features and making sure that you can clearly kind of discern whether you would want to move up to that board or you would want to stay with this board. So lastly, let's go ahead and take a look here at the TUF Gaming board. And sorry guys, one moment here. Yes, there we go. So here we're going to look at the TUF Gaming board, and I will tell you overall the TUF Gaming board has probably been the most popular board consistently from kind of a community standpoint in terms of recommendation. We saw outstanding adoption and success with the TUF Gaming X570 Plus board. A huge amount of people use this board as being a great way to be able to get into X570 at a very cost reasonable standpoint, but wanted a board that was stable, reliable, offered a good set of specifications, right? All the core kind of specs and features were there, right? But it wasn't necessarily carrying that higher end price tag that you were seeing on the ROG STRIX and on the ROG series of motherboards. And we updated that motherboard with the Pro variant that came out a little bit later that improved upon a couple of key areas. Namely, a big one was including a USB-C header on the motherboard that I know a lot of people were looking for. And so now with this model directly is going to be essentially an upgrade compared to that Pro. So we would go from Plus to Pro to now to this Pro 2. So here we want to just take a look at quickly at kind of version 1, and then we will take a look at kind of version 2 here. So they're going to look very, very similar, and I'm wondering if you guys might be able to tell the difference. But one of the big differences, of course, is going to be in the actual design iconography and the overall look and feel, and that's going to be because the new TUF Gaming board will feature the new ID design, which is much more weighted in these kind of vector design language. It's really cool. It's angular. You're going to see it across all of our products. Already has been updated into our graphics cards, into our monitors, into our new AIO coolers. Everything moving forward will all feature the new TUF Gaming ID design, and I think it looks fantastic. And overall, it's going to be a really great option. This board is, again, going to kind of give you all the key things that we talked about here, where you get the 2.5 gigabit LAN, you're going to get the Wi-Fi 6E, you're going to get that internal USB-C header, USB 3. Gen 2 support that's going to be on this board. Good quality Team Power Stage design with a very effective and efficient VRM heatsink design. You can comfortably run any 5000 series CPU on here. It doesn't matter whether you're talking a 5600X to a 5950X if you were really trying to maximize like a board to CPU to value proposition where you wanted to try to get a great experience from that CPU, but go with a more conservatively priced board. This board would definitely be able to handle that and still be able to give you stable and reliable operation, even with enabling things like PBO. And also still be able to assure very good thermal efficiency. You still get the TUF Gaming isolated audio design that's on this board. The audio package is going to be a little bit more basic than the audio package that we're going to have, let's say, on our more premium ROG motherboards, but you still get nice improvements here that are going to be gaming centric on this motherboard. So this is going to include some really nice items that we have here. So take, for instance, you still do have the TUF Gaming audio suite. The TUF Gaming Audio Suite does include a specialized profile package from DTS. So you still actually have a multi-band EQ. You still have specialized presets that you can go in there and kind of tailor towards your gaming experience. So let me go ahead and pull that out there, show you guys here. You can see kind of the little UI interface. It's very simple. You can kind of pick different types of presets in that audio environment, or you can have that multi-band EQ, and you can make your adjustments within there. And if you don't want to enable this, then you can just go into the Windows sound settings and just keep this disabled. But it is an actual premium software suite that does come included with the board as part of the Tough Gaming audio package. The board also does still come included with our Tough Gaming packet priority software, which is called TurboLAN. The ROG boards come with a much more advanced version of this software that we call our Game First Packet Priority software. It's quite a bit more robust and has a lot more options. But from a base perspective, that if, let's say, you're browsing, you're streaming, you've got different things going on in your system, and you just want to be able to make sure that you're prioritizing your networking experience for what you're doing at that moment, which, let's say, is jumping into, you know, a match for Apex Legends or for Warzone, you can do that with the software. So here you can just see an example of this in kind of Apex Legends, where you can actually open up the little overlay. You can see all the key information in terms of kind of your latency, your performance metrics. If you then wanted to prioritize that application, you could just swing it and set it to be prioritized. And then anything else that might be running in the background that might be using bandwidth would be deprioritized. And you can dynamically unload this or load this. So if it's something that you want to spend time to kind of customize and really make sure you're getting the best experience from whatever is happening on your system and how it's using your bandwidth, you can customize that experience. And again, I didn't show demos of this software for the ROG side of the fence, but keep in mind that the ROG motherboards all come with the same type of software in terms of packet priority, just a much more premium version that we call ROG Game First. So you have the same exact options that you can go in and kind of tweak and tailor this. But yeah, definitely really one of the cool things is going to be the new logo design that is on these boards. So again, let's go ahead and take a little bit of a closer look here at the board and just kind of that ID design that we have for this generation. Sorry, let me bring it back up here. There we go. And this will be the entry. So again, if we kind of recap here, the boards that we have in total, we're going to start with the most entry board in the lineup. Great for first-time builders or for those that are looking to have a little bit more aggressive price point, but not compromise on a board that's stable and reliable and is going to offer you a very good quality experience. That's going to be the Tough Gaming board. So the Tough Gaming X570 right here, version 2. We're then going to move up to the next board up in this lineup, which would be the let's go ahead to the ROG STRIX Gaming 2. This would be your next step up in terms of a motherboard. And then technically next in the lineup, if we're kind of keeping things in the gaming kind of vibe, we would have the CROSSHAIR VIII Dark Hero. That would be the third board that we have here in the lineup, right? And then the last two boards that we just talked about would be the ProART board and, of course, the CROSSHAIR VIII Extreme. So let's go ahead and just bring up our ProART board and the Extreme board, and we will go from there. And I will definitely make sure to see if there's any kind of questions here, because we've gone through a lot of information, but hopefully this helps you guys have a good sense of everything that we've done from the kind of the design development side to really be able to give you guys a great experience when it comes to that. So here you can see the ProART board and then the Extreme board. Hey, just no price yet confirmation in terms of the X570-E 2. So just make sure to keep it tuned to our PC DIY group, the PC DIY live stream that we have on Fridays. It's called the PC DIY live stream show. We'll definitely make sure to mention pricing and availability as soon as we have that information. Okay. Let me just see if there's anything here. Hey, Jay Andreas, thank you so much. Appreciate you joining the stream. Okay, so I think not seeing any other kind of questions come up here at the moment, guys. So I think we should probably be okay. TJ is asking right here, is there any pre-order up yet for the X570-E Gaming 2? Not yet. And again, like I said, make sure to just watch us on our social media channels. Make sure to check out our PC DIY group. And as soon as we have any information on that board in terms of its listing, its pricing, and its availability, we will make sure to put out that information once we have it. And that also comes for the Tough Gaming excuse me, for the Tough Gaming update as well. So we will get you covered in that regard also. Hey, so as of right now, there are no immediate plans to discontinue the Crosshair series of motherboards, the current Crosshairs. I will make a note that some people that may be wondering is that the Crosshair 8 formula is no longer available. So that board has already actually been EOL for a little while. So right now, the current active lineup, if we talk about kind of this, just the Crosshair series of motherboards, is going to be, it's going to start off with the standard Crosshair 8 Hero. So let me actually, I think I have an image of that board I can show you guys here. Yeah, so we've got the standard Crosshair Hero, Crosshair 8 Hero, and that board will be kind of the entry into the Crosshair line. So that's what you see right here. Some people think that this already wasn't like a really cool looking board in terms of kind of the dark Hero, but you could equally run this board without type of any RGB lighting. Personally, I think it looks better than the Crosshair 8 Dark Hero because I love the two-toned aesthetic with that little bit of that silver accent. But what do you guys think? Do you like the Crosshair 8 Dark Hero more than the standard Crosshair, at least in terms of the design, because of course the Dark Hero is a higher end board. But the current lineup as it is the Crosshair 8 Hero, and then from there the next would be the Crosshair 8 Dark Hero, and no more formula. And then the highest end board that we'll offer within the Crosshair series lineup will then be the Crosshair 8 Extreme. So those are going to be your 3 different Crosshair series of motherboards that are currently available. Although we technically also do have the Crosshair 8 Impact, which is of course a mini ITX, mini DTX space board, which would also be part of this lineup because it's also a very competent, very high-end board in terms of its features and functions and specifications. But if you're looking from the ROG side of the fence, not the ROG STRIX lineup of boards, these would be the 3 current boards that we'll have available. And if there is any changes to that, of course, we'll also make sure and give you guys updates in that regard. So yeah, no pre-orders yet as of right now when it comes to the ProART. But again, the moment that we have information and availability on that, we will make sure to go ahead and post it on our social media channels and best the PC DIY group. I would recommend if you guys are not, make sure to go ahead and join us there in the group. I'm very active in there on a daily basis, giving guys updates and things along those lines. And so we'll definitely make sure to give out all that information there. Okay, guys. So overall, that wraps up our stream, guys, on the latest generation of ASUS X570 passively cooled motherboards. In total, we've got 5 fantastic boards for you to really be able to offer you a better experience when it comes about building a system that's going to be based off the X570 chipset and the latest generation series of CPUs from AMD that are going to be based on that Zen 3 architecture, Ryzen 5000 series CPU. So whether you're going to be going with the 5600, whether you're going to be going with the 5800, 5900, 5950X, there's going to be a board for you. Any one of these 5 boards are going to offer you a stable and reliable experience. There's an awesome set of features and functions that we've dived into here. And again, if you guys have any questions, comments, or feedback, feel free to go ahead and drop them in the corresponding chats, whether you're checking us out on Facebook or whether you're checking us out on YouTube. We'll do our best to go ahead and follow up with you guys there. If you guys can follow us on those respective channels to make sure to keep it tuned for more content coming to you here in 2021 for all things ASUS when it comes to our PC DIY hardware, that would be appreciated. So with that, guys, take care, take it easy, enjoy the rest of your day, and best of luck with your guys' build.